que ella le daba alergia, solo tuvieron que cambiar esas cosas. Yo no sé, ella está como muy nena. O es que, yo no sé. Voy a callar. Voy a callar porque puede ser que yo tenga alergia. Pero está igual. Pero para mí, en verdad, alguien me enseñó un cojón de cosas. Y sin yo saber, en verdad, alguien me enseñó un cojón de cosas.
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
and I'm in favor. That should be 10, all of us? I mean, nine. Nine? Nine in favor. Thank you. I will now turn it over to Dr. Santelises for CEO comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Richardson. Good evening, everyone. I am going to invite Chief Jeremy Grant Skinner for this evening's PEP. Chief Grant Skinner.
Thank you, Dr. Santelises. Good evening, Commissioners. Here are the appointees on tonight's PEP. First, Amy Neshi, Educational Associate for ESOL, is appointed Educational Specialist 2 for ESOL effective August 25th. Rodney Henderson, Principal Leadership Coach from Prince George's County Public Schools, is appointed ILED for elementary and middle schools effective September 20th. Cassetta Jenkins, Educational Associate at Angela Y. Davis Academy, is appointed Assistant Principal at Glenmount Elementary Middle School, effective August 25th. Ian McNamara, Elementary Teacher at James McHenry Elementary Middle School, is appointed Assistant Principal at James McHenry Elementary Middle School, effective August 25th. Risa Job, Educational Associate at Clay Hill Public Charter School, is appointed Assistant Principal at Clay Hill Public Charter School, effective August 25th. Esther Wallace, Educational Associate 2 for Literacy Support, is appointed Assistant Principal at Patterson High School, effective August 25th. Keating Zhao, Assistant Principal at Baltimore International Academy, is appointed Managing Assistant Principal at Baltimore International Academy West, effective August 25th. Kimberly Felton Pittman, Assistant Principal at Kip Harmony, is reassigned Assistant Principal at Bluford Drew Jemison STEM Academy West, effective August 10th. Kia Moat, Assistant Principal at the Stadium School, was reassigned Assistant Principal at James McHenry Elementary Middle School, effective August 10th. Ayadeji Orabamjo, Assistant Principal at Frederick Douglass High School, was reassigned Assistant Principal at Morgenthaler Vocational Technical High School, effective August 10th. Dawn Strickland, Assistant Principal at Western High School, is reassigned Assistant Principal at Baltimore School for the Arts, effective August 25th. Linda Little, Assistant Principal at Patterson High School, is reassigned Assistant Principal at Polytechnic High School, effective August 25th. Mary Evans, Assistant Principal at Baltimore School for the Arts, is reassigned Assistant Principal at Western High School, effective August 25th. And Brian Plime, Principal at Guilford Elementary Middle School, is reassigned Interim Principal at Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys, effective August 25th through June 30th, 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Grant Skinner. I also just want to give some highlights for two of our principal and interim principal candidates. First, Ms. Ketting Shao is the new managing assistant principal at Baltimore International Academy West. She joined City Schools in 2009 and was a Chinese immersion teacher for 9 years. Since completing the Emerging Leaders Program in 2018, she has served as assistant principal at the original Baltimore International Academy. Ms. Shao has also been an International Baccalaureate team leader and a teacher mentor, and she is vice president of the Chinese Teachers Association for the Capital Region. She holds a bachelor's degree in English education from Central South University and a master's degree in linguistics from Hunan University, both located in Hunan, China. Congratulations, Ms. Shao. Next, we have Mr. Brian Plime, who is the new interim principal at Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys. He began his teaching career at Stewart Hill Academic Academy. After completing the district's principal preparation program, supported by New Leaders, he became a principal in 2009. Principal Prime served as the former Guilford Elementary Middle School's principal for 12 years. He holds a bachelor's degree in African Studies from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and earned a master's degree and administrative certificate from Johns Hopkins University. Congratulations, Principal Prime. I would like to begin this evening's formal remarks with a big shout out to everybody who has been involved in our summer learning program. We literally had an estimated 17,500 students who participated in a summer program, in this year's summer programs, which is more than ever before. In past years, we've had between 6,000 and 7,000 students. This year, we more than doubled those numbers. We had nearly 6,000 high school students who took advantage of our credit recovery initiatives to stay on track for graduation. And we also offered advanced placement preparation, one-on-one and small group tutoring, and programs that targeted our English learners and students with disabilities. Truly, our summer programming was designed to meet the needs of a variety of students. We also benefited from partnering with summer programs that were being offered by partners like Young Audiences, Johns Hopkins University, and Towson University. I just want to send out another big thanks to everyone who supported our staff and students throughout the summer. I got a chance to meet a teacher when I was out shopping who said to me, this was her first year teaching summer school. She was drafted and she said, you know, she really was energized by seeing our young people in person for summer school. So just a big shout out to everyone who participated in summer programming. Also, this past Sunday, Chief of Staff Allison Perkins Cohen, our Chief of Equity, Dr. Tracy Durant, and I had the pleasure of addressing more than 500 summer graduates of the class of 2021. And truly, these students overcame every challenge that the pandemic threw in their path, including the frustration of not being able to complete their graduation requirements by June. But this year is a historic year. It is one that no other set of graduates has had to overcome in terms of obstacles. And these students did not quit. They persevered, they set out and focused on what they needed to do to be successful and graduate, and they did that. And even up to the second ceremony on Sunday, in the rain, every graduate, their families, really came out to celebrate what is truly a milestone moment. So I want to congratulate every summer graduate, every family member, teacher, staff person who supported a summer graduate, and really want to wish these young people truly the best in the next phase of their lives after high school. Earlier today, actually, I had the pleasure of hosting a ribbon cutting ceremony for 3 new 21st century buildings. I was joined by Commissioner Chinya, and those 3 schools were Billie Holiday Elementary School, formerly James Mosher Elementary, Katherine Johnson Global Academy, formerly Calverton Elementary Middle School, and Robert W. Coleman Elementary. Combined, these 3 schools will provide high quality learning environment for more than 1,600 young people, and we are not finished. I will say that Mayor Scott reminded me during the ceremony that we get to do this again on Thursday, and I will have the opportunity to preside over the opening of 2 additional buildings housing 3 additional schools, Patterson High School, Claremont Middle High, and Govins Elementary. Together, these 3 schools will serve nearly 2,100 students. I just want to congratulate the entire 21st Century office our operations team for what truly is a remarkable accomplishment. Despite the hardships of the past 19 months, our team is collectively delivering with our partners 6 brand new 21st century schools to the young people of Baltimore City. So congratulations, and it truly, truly was a wonderful event today. Next, one of the things that we've made clear in our plan to reconnect, restore, reimagine education in Baltimore really is premised, a lot of that in our plan is premised on a return to in-person learning by the vast majority of our students, because we know that most of our young people, like students, not just across the nation, but across the globe, we know that the majority did not benefit from remote learning for a whole host of reasons. However, a small group of students flourished in the virtual environment. Their attendance was strong and their grades reflected success. For students who met these requirements and whose families want their young people to continue virtually, we established a small virtual learning academy with the capacity for about 1,600 students. That capacity has been met, and we can no longer accept additional students. I know that some families were disappointed because they wanted their students to remain virtual for health and safety reasons, and we understand that. The real point of the virtual academy was to extend the opportunity for young people to have an additional option where they could demonstrate success. And really what we are finding is that in most cases, again, those students who would be best served by the virtual academy are those who have shown that they can be highly successful in a virtual learning environment. Now, I do want to note that all students who were not accepted into virtual learning program are being welcomed back to in-person instruction. The district has a comprehensive health and safety protocols. It has those protocols in place. These include mandatory masking for all staff and students, improved ventilation, social distancing, both symptomatic and asymptomatic testing. And I will say, I was reminded again today in a meeting with school leaders and Dr. Zaraza, who's our health commissioner, as well as our health advisory committee, that city schools was one of the first in the state to open with all of these mitigations. We have shown that our schools have not been a major source of spread, frankly, both in last school year as well as during the summer as we are battling the Delta variant. And we have had great affirmation from medical health professionals about all of the mitigation we have in place. And so we want any families who feel that their student has an underlying health issue that would prevent them from returning in person. We want to encourage you to apply for home and hospital instruction so that your particular child's health needs can be addressed. But I really can't stress enough that our schools continue to prove to be safe places for children. So thank you for that. This brings me to the topic of vaccination. There has been a lot of discussion recently in states, cities, school districts across the country about requirements for employees or others to get a COVID-19 vaccination. I understand why this is, of course, such a pressing topic. Just this week, just yesterday, the Food and Drug Administration granted full approval for the first COVID-19 vaccine, Pfizer. And I know that some people were hesitant to get vaccinated before full FDA approval, and now that approval is in place. Second, and most important, the statistics continue to be undeniable. Dr. Zaraza made that clear again today, that there is extensive evidence that the vaccination minimizes the risks, both of getting COVID, but most importantly, of getting very sick from COVID. And Dr. D said just hours ago, alongside our medical advisory group that has been with us the last year and a half plus, that where we are seeing the success with vaccinations is in the decreased numbers of hospitalizations as well as deaths from COVID because of the extra protection, because of the protection that the vaccines provide. When we released our recovery plan, we said that before anything else, we would continue to prioritize health and safety. Absolutely continues to be the case. While quite a few districts have recently talked about a vaccination mandate, I will point out that in nearly all of those cases, those places are only now putting in place the protocols that we have had in place since spring. Every staff member and student attending school in person has participated in weekly, no symptom COVID-19 testing since March, unless they are vaccinated. We were an early leader in implementing such an expansive vaccine and testing program, not only within our state, but within the country. And it remains a core part of our health and safety strategy. Today, we do not currently require employees to be vaccinated against COVID-19. However, high levels of vaccination absolutely support health and safety. We strongly encourage employees to be vaccinated. We are proud of our partnerships with local health organizations in the winter and early spring of 2021, through which we vaccinated thousands of our employees. In large part due to those efforts, at least 80% of our teachers and 90% of our principals are fully vaccinated today. And this week, all employees who have not already reported to us that they are fully vaccinated are required to provide an update on their vaccination status to our Human Capital Office. While it is not required today, in the context of what I've shared here tonight, recent, as of yesterday, decisions by the FDA, we are in fact actively considering a COVID-19 vaccination mandate for all employees, regardless of the testing participation. Genuine consideration of this option is the responsible thing for us to do. We have made no decision yet. If we decide to take this additional step of requiring all employees to be vaccinated, we will immediately begin negotiating the details of such a mandate with our union partners. And then finally, that brings us to the year ahead. We are thrilled. I'm excited. This is probably my favorite time of year, perhaps only in a tie with the Christmas holidays in my house, but I love the start of the school year. And even though we face really a daunting challenge, we also have a unique opportunity. And if we are going to overcome some of the academic, social, emotional challenges and disruptions that our young people have suffered, we're really going to have to strive to achieve personalization at scale. I had the opportunity to address school leaders and district leaders this past Wednesday. I had a chance to share with our teachers this morning that really our goal is to be able to create the environments for personal relationship building with students and teachers and families to make sure that we have a profile of every student's learning plan that's not just based on test scores, but really reflects what the hopes and dreams for young people are, truly reflects what families know about their young people, that teachers have learned over the course of the year, to be able to bring together all of the elements that we know will help young people be successful. That includes not just academically, but emotionally. We know that we will be expanding our school-based behavioral health teams this year and building out a number of those supports. We know that testing and assessment will officially resume in the fall, and that will be an important benchmark. But most important of all is making sure that we know where each young person is when they return to school and crafting a plan and a path that enables and supports each young person's schooling. So what I would like to say to all of you is this is a huge undertaking, but it is also a unique opportunity. We're committed to acceleration. We're committed to going deep on the needs of every individual student. That's what our young people need, and that's what our families deserve. That concludes my remarks for this evening. Thank you, Chair Richardson.
Thank you, Dr. Santelises. We will now hear a presentation for the first reader of policy DJA, procurement.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Wilson, and I'm currently the Acting Procurement Director for City Schools. The presentation today covers a little bit about some of the work we've done with engagement and then the changes to the policy that we're proposing. So the last time the procurement regulations were updated, it was actually in 2019. And as part of this process, we wanted to also look at a review of practices and implementation that go along with that policy in order to identify some of the opportunities for improvement here at City Schools with the procurement team. And we did that largely by starting off with engagement. So the goals of engagement were to hear from parents, students, and staff about what their priorities are for procurement for the district, receive feedback on the experience of the procurement process from various stakeholders here at central office, out at schools, to think through how we can better support our end users, and then also talking with and receiving feedback from vendors about how they're experiencing the process. So just really quickly, we looked at basically kind of small group meetings with a wide variety of offices. We met with traditional school principals and charter school principals, and we also had engagement sessions with PCAP, CCAC, and ASCBC. So basically the people that ask to buy things, as well as the stakeholders such as parents and students who are kind of on the receiving end of all the different services and products that we buy here at City Schools. Next slide, thank you. So we heard a lot of themes that came out of those conversations around improvement. There was a lot of requesting just basic better access to information right now in order to get kind of some of where's my contract or where's my spending. They have to ask a procurement buyer or a budget analyst to look up some of these numbers. So there was an interest in improving reporting and access to that information. Ability to track status of contracts and agreements kind of the whole way through the process, from beginning a solicitation to a signed agreement where we can now start purchasing on a contract. Training, guidance, and other materials that would be available to support onboarding of new members so that everyone kind of inside the City Schools team understands the process. And a general issue of the process takes a really long time. Public procurement has a lot of steps that you have to go through in order to ensure all of the requirements are met and that we're kind of following our own regulations and the rules that might be associated with any of the funding that we're using. Improving invoicing and payment process, as well as just, again, trying to better communicate when we hit a snag in a process when we're buying something. What is that hold? Why is an item on hold and waiting for additional information? So those were kind of from the internal meetings. If you could go to the next slide. When we talked to parents, students, and other stakeholders, we were really focusing in more on what are the priorities that the system should be focusing on when we're buying materials or services for students. How can we support all students better with how we purchase materials and services, and what types of information would be helpful for parents and community members on how we actually go about that process of purchasing services or materials. The The themes from those conversations are really, the priorities were focusing on durability, efficiency, quality, value, and reliability, and also making sure that whatever we're doing in a procurement process is really considering all our students and stakeholder needs in that process, so that when we're asking to purchase something, it's going to meet the needs of students across the spectrum of different needs throughout the district. One of the interesting pieces of the conversation that we got into with the students was, how can we do a better job of actually getting feedback from students about how services from different contractors may be received at schools, and just kind of their thoughts on products and items. And they also pointed out in those conversations that it's really important for us to listen to teachers, because sometimes students don't actually know what they need, but the teachers in their classrooms who work with them every day would be better able to articulate those needs to either central office teams that are looking at curriculum materials or looking to buy different types of supplies or services for students. The students were also really adamant that we should be looking around and saying, what are other districts doing, and making sure that we're comparing what we're providing to students to kind of just in general what else is happening in Maryland, and so that they're getting kind of a fair shake in comparison to their peers in other districts. And then as far as information, there was a lot of interest in just being able to see more information about the vendors and how they're doing work here at city schools. And there was frequent reminders that it's important when we're talking about procurement and we're putting materials out there, that we need to make sure that we are not using jargon and we're putting it in language that is readily available and accessible to our community. The third group of stakeholders that we engaged in this process were the vendors. And so we did this through a survey. We have over 2,000 vendors here at city schools in any given fiscal year. And so we broke that down by categories. We broke it down by a dollar value spent, and different types of subgroups in order to get a representative sample across the district of different types of vendors that we might do business with. So next slide, please. So we asked some very kind of basic questions to get some information about where vendors were going to get information, how much they actually knew about the process, and their experience here with city schools. We had a 35% response rate, which is actually pretty good for surveys. And many in the free response area, they actually indicated that they were pleased to have the opportunity to provide this feedback. And so I think it's something that we're going to be continuing to think about, how we engage the vendor community in order to be receiving kind of information about how we can improve best practices here within the procurement team itself. Just a couple of highlights here. I think one of the takeaways that the team had after looking at this information is that the best way for us to make sure that all of our vendors know every time there's an opportunity for them to be participating in a procurement here at city schools is to make sure that we're having them log in and sign in for what's called the eMaryland Marketplace. That's really the statewide procurement system. And so that was one of the areas that we did some training on that I'll talk about a little bit in a future slide. But that ability to sign up for notifications and to actively loop in vendors when they're asking questions to the procurement team about future opportunities is really the best way for us to make sure that no one falls through the cracks. Every time that we get information in that someone's interested about doing business, we're pointing them to that as a way to just automatically get those notifications. And so they don't have to keep checking the procurement website, which, as you can see from the responses, only about 33% of our vendors indicated that they regularly actually check our website, where we also post the solicitations. So this information is really giving us some basis to think through how we can better support and respond to our vendor community across the board, including looking at some of the ways in which they indicated we could do a better job of being clear and concise in some of our solicitation documents and directions. And so we're continually looking to update kind of the guidance that goes along with that process for vendors. Other improvements to practice that we've done is we're updating current information on the website. So if you go to the procurement website today, that's already in process. There's some additional information that we've provided that's right there on that landing page, and some additional resources. We're in the process of creating a contract tracking system. We're actually testing it with the first department to see how that works as far as the automation for the information flow. And we're waiting to get some final feedback on that before we roll it out across the central office team. We have additional reporting capabilities. that go along with that so that we can provide some of that spending information as well, at least at a high level by a contract standpoint for everyone. And then we completed, in partnership with the communication team and our partners in OAA, a vendor and partner series where we actually provided kind of the basics of how to do business with City Schools, how do you get connected, how do you start. We walked through some of the basics of our contracts and our MOUs. We did an entire session on how to become WMBE certified, and went through the basics of the ESSA level of effectiveness for vendors. And so all of those were recorded, and they'll be available on the website as future resources for vendors and partners who may be interested in doing business with City Schools. We also implemented procurement office hours. We've done this three months running now, and every office hour, at least one person has dropped in with questions that we've been able to work through and resolve. We're updating the procedures for those on-hold items so that it's more readily accessible and viewable to all of our end users about where something is in the process and why there may be additional information or steps that need to occur before we can create a purchase order and actually buy services or goods. We're reviewing and updating the training materials, so we're slowly working through all of the specific suggestions that were provided in that listening session and updating both the accessible, like some of the documents were available, but people didn't know where to find them, so we're working on putting them on the same place so that they're accessible, and then updating some additional, or creating additional documents that just didn't exist that were identified as gaps through that process. We're also working with our partners in the legal office to update contract monitoring forms and providing guidance and training on that to do a better job after we have a contract in place of gathering that feedback and making sure that we are working closely with our vendors to hold them accountable to the agreements that they have with City Schools. Additional improvements, we've updated the conflict of interest language. So this language is updated in RFPs, and we're requiring some additional level of check to make sure that there aren't conflicts of interest, particularly with key personnel and contracts. We've updated this as well for members that are on evaluation teams and are continuing to have a more robust ethics. Can you go back to the last slide? One more back. Thank you. Ethics and conflict of interest requirements, making sure that they're in all of our documents and that we're communicating them to vendors and other stakeholders upfront as part of that procurement process. We're also including in the policy, the director shall create a code of ethics for vendors that will be part of that process moving forward. That is something that will be a work in progress as we're working through what the appropriate documents and things like that would be as part of that. That is a change that will be in regulation. Next slide, please. Buy local. Buy local, this is something that our food and nutrition team has already kind of piloted and been successful, showing that it's possible to kind of identify a geographic area and focusing the purchasing of fresh fruits and vegetables in that area. Based on the success and the importance of the buy local provision in general, we'll be working to incorporate more opportunities for that in solicitations moving forward. And as always, we're looking to make sure that all of these changes that we talk about in regulations are reflected in our solicitations and our contracts. So specific changes that are included in the policy and the regulation based on all of this work. And the policy for WMBE and equity statements of language is updated, emphasizing the commitment to support participation in contracts. We're updating the language in general to align with our new RFP and contract templates. We are including a provision to allow the CFO to sign contracts and MOUs in the Director of Procurement's absence. We're including additional language around the equity policy and aligning our additional language with the environmental sustainability policy. We're including language around living wage requirements and adding the language supporting the local and regional sourcing. We're also clarifying language to expressly allow for electronic submission of bids. This is something that happened due to COVID-19, and we've seen quite a bit of success with a lot of the shifting to the electronic opportunities, and so we've incorporated that in the regulations as well. And again, those more robust ethics and conflict of interest statements in the contract documents and purchase order agreements are also being reflected. So the minority and women business enterprise updates for this slide, this is largely the work of our partners in the legal department. And so they've clarified the WMB program utilizing the City of Baltimore's procedures unless otherwise specified, updating key programmatic terms, including the provision and a commitment to a robust and dynamic outreach and engagement program. One of the biggest barriers we have in this is just making sure that everyone understands all of the process involved and also how they can connect. And so focusing in on those areas, clarifying the criteria for goal setting and for waivers as part of that solicitation process, and adding specific language for the consequences when MWB program compliance isn't met by a particular contractor. And with that, that's the end of the presentation, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Jessica. Are there any questions? I did have a question, and I'm not sure.
I think my hand was up as well.
Oh,
But go ahead, I can pick the
I'm so
way.
confused because I am in person. Go ahead, Commissioner Bunting.
No, I'll wait.
No, you go,
Good.
you go. I'm so sorry.
We had lots of conversation in operations in reference to vendors who commit to us in contract that they must commit a percentage of the contract to MWBE contractors in that program. And in some instances, these contractors do not comply. And when they don't do that, there's a large sum of money that does not go to the M and that is a great concern.
Oh.
Can't hear me? Oh, wait a minute. Now, can you hear me now? You can?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. We had a quiet conversation in our operation committee in reference to contractors who do not comply with the contract, or when I say comply, they do not, they're supposed to put X amount of money percentage given to MWBE programs or contractors, and that doesn't happen. And my concern, and I guess anybody's concern, is if there is money that's not given to or contracted with the minority contractors, then where does that money go? We need to determine how and why and get more information. And some of the contractors who get these contracts from us, they might say things like they could not find contractors who could do the work. And some use as excuses because of the pandemic, it was difficult to find. And one thing that a minority contractor would tell you, that this is the time when they definitely will be able to find somebody to do the work because of finances. They're the last one on the list who would have problems. So I'd like to find out what we're going to do about that, because I don't think we should let that go. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about it when we get down to 15.7. And one of the procurement, because when these things happen, we need to follow through on it, because we cannot keep hiring contractors who are not doing the work and not complying with the contracts that we give them. And we need to put it on notice and find out if we have to deal with it legally.
Jess, I'm happy to jump in if you'd like me to.
Please.
And one more thing, Josh, I'd like to say, when we go back to the slide, I forgot the slide that we showed were percentages of contractors or people who completed the survey. I'd like to know how many, you showed the percentage, but how many people completed the survey? Was that number 7, I think, on the PowerPoint? I think it was number 7. Was that 7?
So we can get the
Yeah,
raw
this
data.
one right here. How many people, how many vendors actually did the survey? I see where you have the percentage, but you can tell me how many vendors, is that the right one?
We can.
Yeah,
we
that's
can
the right one. That's it,
we can-
thank you.
We
Yeah,
can follow up with that information. I don't remember off the top of my head, so we can get that to you.
because you showed only 26% of the respondents to the survey was minority contractors. But I'd like to know how many overall completed survey. That would be good for us to know. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Bondima, I'd be happy to talk about enforcement. And I think that starting generally, we did some work in the regulation and actually the policy as well to be clear, not just for MWBE requirements, but for all requirements, that there are consequences for failing to live up to contracts. And we've been working in partnership with procurement to make it clear to vendors and actually to take some actions against vendors. We recently initiated a lawsuit against one vendor who had failed to live up to our status, and happy to follow up with that piece. Specifically with respect to MWBE vendors, a key enhancement of the current regulation is that we actually spell out pieces that used to be just in our request for proposal language around what are the consequences. So now the regulation itself states that there are a number of consequences, including liquidated damages, and liquidated damages are really important clarification of, so an additional remedy in addition to anything we have for breach, we can say, because it's so important, we reserve the right for liquidated damages, and it's our commitment to work with procurement to enforce when we need to. And that also, I think, and this is critical as well and emphasized in the new pieces, to pair that with outreach and support for vendors in identifying subcontractors. So subcontractors can, under the law, say, I've made a good faith effort and can't identify an MWBE. And it's our responsibility to come back and say, wait a second, in this field, we know there are 16 subcontractors that have worked with other vendors. What's the concern here? Go back and double your efforts, because if those vendors out there, you really have to show that they have all been contacted, and for some reason or another, they're legitimately unavailable. And I can think of several cases in recent months where we've said to subcontractors, what's your evidence of to support that waiver? So exactly, I 100% agree with you that we need to be vigilant on this, and I think that our recent experience testifies to our ramping up, especially in light of, as your point, the contracting that we're doing under the pandemic. What did I miss, Ms. Wilson?
Okay, I just want to say thank you, because that's great follow-up. And as long as we know that you can't, submit contracts for Baltimore City Public Schools and not comply with the contract, then we need to send a message out that no, we will not have it, and this is what we're going to do if you don't, follow your contract. Thank you so much.
It's an important question. Thanks for asking.
Thank you.
Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you very much. I just had a question. It's probably very closely related to Commissioner Bondima's question, but it's, I didn't read in here, how are we auditing how well the contractor does? And I don't know if this exercise was designed to include that, but I didn't see it listed explicitly about like current vendors maybe they're meeting the WBE, MBE, or whatever, but the product that they're delivering. So if it's a service that, perhaps it's just they're not delivering it well, is there a plan to like have a consistent auditing of our current vendors? Because some of them may need to just be dismissed for poor service.
So I won't speak specifically to any of the WMBE review. I'll let Chief Sivan chime in on that. But as far as the actual performance for contracts, we're expanding and trying to kind of provide training and support for contract monitors to be collecting that type of information. That's one of the areas that, we have some teams that already are somewhat familiar with it because of the type of work. And then there are other folks that just, for a variety of reasons, don't know that they can speak up and tell us about performance. And so some of that is training for sure. And we're working with our colleagues in the legal department on the actual contract monitor guidance and those types of things. But also, I think it's just partly reminding everyone that when they're having issues, they can actually reach out to the buyer and the procurement team, and we can document that and have those conversations with the vendors to try and course correct before we move to more kind of grave consequences, such as terminating contracts or things like that.
I like that. Is that a part of this procurement policy, or is that something else?
It is not necessarily something we are updating or changing in the policy or the regulations. It's already part of kind of how procurement works.
Okay.
It was an area that we identified as needing to improve practice and implementation.
Okay, that makes sense.
And Ms. Wilson is modest in her claims. I think the procurement's done a really great job recently in bringing along the contract monitor and emphasizing the importance of their partnership with procurement because they're on the ground seeing the performance of the contractor. So in order for us to be effective enforcing contracts, we need to all work as a team in city schools to get that feedback that then becomes either the support, right, or the consequences for noncompliance. So just kudos to the procurement team for that work.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you both. Are there any other questions, commissioners? And help me if there are any hands raised on the screen. All right. So thank you very much, Jessica and Josh. We really appreciate the presentation. I will now review the consent agenda. Board colleagues, please let me know if you would like an item removed, and please state your question for staff. I'm pulling items 8.01 waiver request FKA and 8.03 gifts and donations so that our student commissioner can vote on them. Would any commissioner like to pull either of those items for questions?
Madam Chair, this is Commissioner Roberts. I'd like to pull 8.01. In spring 2020, when we tabled an FKA request, because we had noticed that the language was inconsistent in the summaries, I noticed that this request, we don't have an FKA waiver summary. And so we never particularly ironed out specificity around the FKA waiver.
Is that clear enough for staff? That's clear enough? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Roberts. All right, so I'm going to go down the rest of the list. 8.02, Built to Learn Act. 12.01, Digital Tools. 12.02, Innovations for Learning, Inc. 12.03, the Literacy Lab. 12.04, is that Axiom Educators, LLC? 12.05, Girl Scouts of Central Maryland, Inc. 12.06, Fitness, Fun, and Games, Inc. I'm going to pull that for vote. 13.01, Marco Technologies. 15.01, JF Fisher, Inc. 15.02, Temp Air Company. 15.03, BMS Cat of Maryland. 15.04, Denver Elec, Inc. 15.05, Chilmar Corporation. 15.06, American Tennis Courts. 15.07, Lube Matrix, Inc. 15.08, Good Companies, Inc. and Republic Services of Baltimore. 15.09, Kennedy Krieger Institute. 15.10.
I'd like to pull that, please, Madam Chair.
Oh, okay. That was 15.09?
Correct, and not just for a vote.
Okay.
In policy DJA, we state that we want our procurement policies for staff and all vendors, entities, consultants, as well as their agents, employees, and subcontractors to comply with all applicable laws, including but not limited to the highest standards of ethics and integrity. I believe this is a chance for the board to step up and say that the alleged and confirmed human rights violations of Nestle Company is not something that we should want to do business with. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner James. 15.10, Ready Refresh by Nestle. 15.11, K. Neal International Trucks.
Madam Chair, I'd like to pull this procurement. We are less than a week away from opening our buildings. We know that we have changed our bell schedules by 50% over the last few years, and that there's a national driver shortage. I would just really like the staff to provide some context to what the district is, the need that the district is attempting to accomplish with this procuring of buses.
Thank you. Thank you. 15.12, The Driven Group, LLC. 16.01, Tuition Reimbursement.
Chair Richardson,
Yes.
I would like to pull this for a particular question. I know that the letter isn't directly addressing this, but it is referenced about the other bargaining units and what percentage is reimbursed. I just have a question about each of the different bargaining units and what the percentage of tuition reimbursement is for all of them. Because the BTU is represented here, the teachers union, but I'm curious to know about the other bargaining units as well, just what that percentage is as it relates to the reimbursement.
Thank you, Commissioner McFadden. 18.01, Shaw Rosenthal, LLP. Okay, we're gonna now move to public comment. What time is it? Yes, we're gonna move to public comment. Speakers from recognized groups will have the opportunity to speak for 5 minutes. We have Christina Duncan Evans representing the Baltimore Teachers Union. I'll now turn it over to Board Executive for public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Duncan Evans, are you online?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. You'll have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening and greetings. I'm Christina Duncan Evans, and I'm the Teacher Chapter Chair of the BTU on external assignment. I'd like to speak tonight on an issue of governance, specifically the governance of the Board of School Commissioners. The BTU is concerned by some of the changes presented in policy BBA and requests that the board delay policy BBA until more questions can be answered. We are concerned about parts of BBA that contradict the Code of Maryland Regulations, or COMAR. We also have a number of questions about how vague language in the policy will be enforced. We are finally concerned that the timing of this policy does not allow for next year's elected and appointed board members to participate in shaping the board's governance. The Code of Maryland Regulations, or COMAR, establishes that local and county boards have the authority, the ultimate authority, to engage in collective bargaining with unions. But policy BBA puts that responsibility in the hands of our CEO. In fact, COMAR specifically names the Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners as having the authority to negotiate labor contracts. The education article states, the board shall enter into collective bargaining agreements with the appropriate employee organizations as provided under Title VI, subtitles 4 and 5 of this article. COMAR then goes on to explicitly name this board, saying public school employer means a county board of education or the Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners. Policy BBA should be delayed until questions are answered about the legality of a local policy that seems to contradict state law. Policy BBA could potentially tie the hands of a future board if that board disagrees with what a future CEO negotiates. Please delay this vote until there is more clarity about the board's ability to impact labor contracts under Policy BBA's proposed changes. Policy BBA also seeks to clarify appropriate relationships between the board and stakeholders, but the policy's vague definitions bring up a number of questions. The policy assigns the same definition to special interest group, and can I be heard? I'm sorry, I'm hearing a lot of feedback.
I'm hearing it too, Christina, but I do still hear you.
Okay.
Are we all muted here?
As long as folks can hear.
I can still hear you, though I do hear the noise you're talking about.
Okay. The policy assigns the same definition to special interest group and community stakeholder group, calling them both any association of individuals, organizations, or corporate entities that on the basis of one or more shared interests or issues attempts to influence policy in its favor. The policy further states that members of the board shall, quote, make decisions based upon the best interests of city schools as a whole and not solely on those interests of any individual or particular special interest group or community stakeholder group, end quote. How would the board accurately evaluate the motivations of a particular vote cast by a board commissioner? If the majority of the board takes a position on an issue and says that they are acting in the best interest of city schools as a whole, does that mean that by definition, a dissenting voice was not aligned with the best interests of the district as a whole? What if a school board member is influenced by a community association or a PTA, PTO group? Should a group of families of students be treated the same by the board as curriculum and assessment companies? Would research and policy institutes fit into the definition of a special interest group? Are future board members supposed to avoid being influenced by think tanks and institutes as well? In Policy BBA, board members are prohibited from, quote, interfering with the CEO's management of school operations, end quote. How is interfering defined? According to BBA, instead of taking action in response to parent or student concerns, board members are to refer all matters to the CEO. How would this policy change the public's relationship with the school board as the public looks to future elected board members to be responsive to their concerns? Finally, through Policy BBA, the board gets the additional power to censure a board member, although the definition of behavior that could be sanctioned is very broad and subjective. Policy BBA states a board member who violates this policy is subject to disciplinary action by the board, including but not limited to committee membership removal and censure. There are so many questions about the policy's meaning and interpretations, as well as its legality, that it is premature to give the board the power to punish members without fully understanding what people can be punished for. In a little over a year, the board will welcome its first elected members, and between then and now, there will be several new appointees added to the board by Mayor Brandon Scott. We ask that you delay a vote on BBA until the new elected and appointed board commissioners have an opportunity to weigh in on how the district is governed, which is a critical part of their job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Next, we have a comment from Ms. Jocelyn Providence. Ms. Providence, are you on? I see you in the guest. If you're on a phone, you need to hit *6, but I do see you in the attendees.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes, we can hear you. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you all for hearing from me this evening. My name is Jocelyn Providence, and I'm a high school math teacher in Baltimore City Public Schools. My first comment is in regards to policy BBA. So the second reader for policy BBA is currently scheduled to be voted on during the next school board meeting. I ask that you all delay this policy change proposal because there is still a lot of questions that need to be answered and input that needs to be heard regarding the policy. There is an inappropriate restriction on free speech and interactions with the media. School board commissioners not only represent Baltimore City Public Schools, but they represent the students, families, and residents of Baltimore City and should not be limited in their ability to communicate with stakeholders. Also, because school board commissioners represent the stakeholders, they should continue to hold the authority to consolidate, close, and create schools, which is state law. I have additional comments on policy BBA, but due to my limited time, I'm going to email some of those. Also, with there being new school board commissioners appointed and 2 new elected school board commissioners within the next year, the new commissioners deserve to have a say in how governance will occur. So my final ask related to policy BBA is that the vote on the second reader for policy BBA be delayed. My second comment is in regards to the 6th assessment report by the IPCC, which is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Not sure if you're an environmental nerd like I am, but if you did happen to read some of the report, there's actually a policymaker's headline summary that tells the big themes. And the major theme is that the planet is in a dire state, and we must take drastic actions to limit future climate change and limit the risk for current generations and future generations to come. One of the key actions that is stated is that there needs to be, quote, limiting cumulative CO2 emissions, reaching at least net zero CO2 emissions, along with strong reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. So I'm curious, what policies does BCPSS plan on creating to address this? There needs to be an increase in buildings that are LEED certified, especially with our 21st century buildings. And there needs to be a reduction in wasted energy and emissions produced by buildings and transportation. There also needs to be a huge improvement in how we educate staff and students on the importance of environmental education. I ask that the board make sure that environmental education is an included topic in every grade level. And in high school, there should be an environmental science course that every high schooler can take, along with an option of AP Environmental Science. As an educator, I know that preparing our students extends past the walls of our classroom and our content, and we need to make sure that we do what's best for not only this generation, but generations to come. And one last quick comment related to 1510, I think it is on the agenda. It's the Ready Fresh related to Nestle that you all are voting on this evening. Nestle is actually the world's largest producer of bottled water. Nestle also maintains an unsustainable and inequitable use of aquifers globally, especially also in California. The chairman also does not believe that water is a universal human right. I'm sorry?
Sorry, your time is up. If you can.
Okay, yep. So I'll just wrap up right here. In that I think that we need to, as a district, be more mindful of who we are contracting with and deal with the root cause of undrinkable water in Baltimore City. To address that and not be reliant on bottled water, especially from negligent companies. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have a video from Miss Melissa McDonald, which I'll now play.
And upon external assignment of the Baltimore Teachers Union, with members of the BTU's new teacher steering committee.
Hi, my name.
I'd like to thank the board and the Office of Human Capital for agreeing in writing to a 10-day response rate for certification inquiries. I saw the Human Capital presentation informing the board that another certification staff member known as CAPA will be hired. We appreciate that plans are being made that will impact teachers in future years, and we need simple solutions implemented to help teachers today who are struggling with certification. The new CAPA hasn't been hired yet, and the CAPA training process, along with the internship that accompanies it, can take from 6 months to a year before they're able to fully process certification requests and inquiries. Teachers recently hired by the district are being told that they will not receive a transcript evaluation until December of this year, meaning that they'll lose the opportunity to take the correct certification classes during this fall semester 2021. This applies not just to first-year teachers, but to any new hire from out of state, experienced teachers who wish to finish their certification requirements as quickly as possible. Teachers who are new to Baltimore City need information now regarding what certification requirements from their previous states transfer to Maryland. In previous conversations with the district, we've been promised access to or information from a tracking system that's designed to show the progress on an individual certification request. We're requesting an update on this tracking system.
My certification is now officially expired. I'm entering this school year, this coming school year, without being certified because the certification office cannot handle what they're doing. This undue stress is affecting my health, causing high blood pressure, which I now have to take medication for, causing sleepless nights. And the only answer I can ever get is the same party line about, oh, they have 120 days. The 120 days keeps changing. First, it's just 120 days. Then it's 100.
With two potential outcomes, tenure and termination. It's incredibly frustrating for members to have access to so little information about where they are in the process when they just want to follow the rules, meet the requirements, and complete the steps that they need to so that they're able to teach their students according to the regulations of the state of Maryland. Please support our members by providing details on the tracking system that will help us meet member needs so that they can focus their energy on their students and their classrooms. Thanks so much.
On. Good afternoon. Sorry, we're having some tech issues. I'm going to replay from the middle of the video since we did get cut off.
Teachers who wish to finish their certification requirements as quickly as possible. Teachers who are new to Baltimore City need information now regarding what certification requirements from their previous states transfer to Maryland. In previous conversations with the district, we've been promised access to or information from a tracking system that's designed to show the progress on an individual certification request. We're requesting an update on this tracking system.
My certification is now officially expired. I'm entering this school year, this coming school year, without being certified because the certification office cannot handle what they're doing. This undue stress is affecting my health, causing high blood pressure, which I now have to take medication for, causing sleepless nights. And the only answer I can ever get is the same party line about, oh, they have 120. 120 days keeps changing. First, it's just 120 days. Then it's 120 days, not including holidays and weekends. And then it's 120 days, not including holiday weekends or school building closures. The district needs to do better by its teachers that work so hard and jump through all these hoops just to stay.
In the perspective of a teacher, certification is a high-stakes process with two potential outcomes, tenure and termination. It's incredibly frustrating for members to have access to so little information about where they are in the process when they just want to follow the rules, meet the requirements, and complete the steps that they need to so that they're able to teach their students according to the regulations of the state of Maryland. Please support our members by providing details on the tracking system that will help us meet member needs so that they can focus their energy on their students and their classrooms. Thanks so much.
Okay. Sorry for the technical difficulties. We'll also just include a link to the video and board docs if members of the public want to see the video. But Madam Chair, that was it for public comment.
Thank you, Christian. So I'm going to go back to the items that were pulled. 8.01 waiver request, FKA. Commissioner Roberts, was that one?
Yes, it was 8.01.
Is staff ready? Oh, I gotta turn my camera on.
Just making sure that we have staff ready for the response.
Madam Chair, for the sake of time, we can move forward with another one until staff is ready.
Commissioner Roberts, this is Chris Doherty, CFO. I think we would take you up on that suggestion because I know Food Service Director Liz Marquetta is in the building, and I think she might be making her way down to that room. And if we could put her, you know, a couple of items down, I bet she'll be in place to handle any questions any board members might have.
Thank you,
My
Chief
apologies,
Doherty.
I'm here.
Yeah, she's right here.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief Doherty.
Sure.
I know that there was a question about the format of the waiver request. My understanding is that the Friends of Great Kids Farm submitted the request in simply a different format. It does contain all of the information that is usually contained in this waiver request, but it was not submitted in the exact same format as prior requests.
So my question then is, what is the standardized submission of this waiver request? The last waiver request that we did receive in spring of 2020 was tabled not only because we didn't have students in the building, but because there were inconsistencies in the language and submissions of these same waivers. And so with this, I guess now considering waiver requests in this form again, what is the standardized submission of this form?
I can't speak to the standardized submission of this form. This is an event that does occur annually with the Friends of Great Kids Farm there. And I know that we did have to make some adjustments for the health and safety during this time to the form. But I actually cannot speak myself to the standard submission of this waiver.
Mr. Gamble's hand is up. Is that fair?
Yes. This is Gregory Gamble. I am the real estate agent. And there isn't really a standard form for someone submitting a waiver request for FKA for an alcohol waiver. They just have to submit a letter to the CEO, but there's no format or standard form.
So my question then is the FKA waiver summary that we previously received, will the board no longer receive an FKA waiver summary moving forward? That is my question. Will we only receive the request from the potential partner?
That I do not know. I know in the past, you guys just received the letter, and then normally the partner was on site to answer like any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gamble.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, are we ready to vote for 8.01 and 8.03? Okay, is there a motion?
I'll move approval, James.
Thank you, Commissioner James. Is there a second?
Second, Bandima.
Thank you, Commissioner Bandima. All in favor? Commissioner Bandima?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks? Is Commissioner Brooks still with us, Christian? Commissioner Chinya?
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin?
Yes.
Commissioner Horowitz?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden? Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts?
No.
Okay, I want to go back to see if Commissioner Brooks is here.
Yes. I
Okay.
vote no.
You vote, okay. Hold on. So the opposed would be 2, right? Okay. 8 in favor, 2, 7 in favor. Commissioner Horowitz, didn't she vote?
Oh.
Okay. All right. So for the public, how did that go? 8 in favor, 2 opposed? Okay, thank you. The next one I just wanted to pull for vote was 12.06, fitness, fun, and games. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved, Kenya.
Thank you, Commissioner Chinya. Is there a second?
Second, James.
Thank you, Commissioner James. All in favor? Commissioner Bondema?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks? Commissioner
Yes.
Chinya?
Yes.
And I heard your yes, Commissioner Brooks. Commissioner Griffin?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts?
No.
Okay, and I'm also opposed. So what's the count?
7 in favor, 2 opposed.
Thank you. The next one we pulled was 15.10, ready to refresh. Commissioner James, did you want to restate?
No,
Okay.
I can if there's questions from board colleagues, otherwise we can just vote.
We can just vote. Any questions from the board? All right, let's vote. Is there a motion to approve 15.10? Okay, so what happens when there's no motion?
Commissioner Richardson, I could make a motion to remove item 1510 from the consent agenda and our agenda for vote.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second, Reed.
Okay. All in favor for that motion? Commissioner Bondema?
I'm abstaining from that vote.
Okay. Commissioner Brooks?
No.
Commissioner Chinya?
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin?
Yes, to remove it, right?
To remove it, that is
Okay.
correct. Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden?
I'm abstaining.
Okay. Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts?
No.
Okay. I'm also in favor, so what's the count on that?
5 in favor, 1 no, 2 abstentions.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
we also do acknowledge that our students do need water in school, so I would put out a public plea to a partner to step up who is interested or willing in providing a local source of water in the immediacy until we can find a better long-term solution.
Thank you.
Madam Chair. Okay. Just for the clarification of the public, this motion was to approve the item, correct?
No.
It was to approve the removal of that item.
Okay, so we're moving forward with the motion just on the item itself?
Just on the item itself.
Okay.
Thank you. Chief Doherty, thank you, Commissioner McFadden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Doherty, Chief Financial Officer. I just, I'm not sure if this is the right process, but except for some short comments made earlier, I'm inferring some things. This is not a Chief Financial Officer item per se, but before we lose the moment and we go on to the next item, am I allowed to ask the board to explain, or at least someone to just briefly explain for the record why we're removing this item that just very respectfully submitted, just before we move on, and then people will only speculate and maybe get it wrong, you know?
Commissioner James?
Sure. Policy JKA is pushing us to help our partners be better world citizens, and the amount of alleged and substantiated human rights violations, human trafficking accusations, poor stewardship of water, abuse of nursing mothers, and things like that that have happened around the world makes it a company with which I would prefer that we as an organization use our biggest vote, which is our dollar, to help them understand they need to change their practices, rather than contributing to the sustaining of unethical practices. Thank you for the clarification opportunity.
Did that help you, Chief Doherty?
Thank you, yes. And I know in general terms we're putting out an RFP for a longer term solution to this. And my understanding of this particular item was that it was a stopgap measure. Thank you for that clarification, and the board has voted, and we will adjust accordingly.
Thank you so much, Chief. Yes, sir.
I'd like to adjust or change my vote to that previous motion to no.
Have you captured that, Christian?
Yeah, so I believe the previous motion was there are 5 yea votes, which would be a quorum, which would be a yes to proceed. But my question is, again, is there going to be a motion on the item itself? I heard an item on pulling it, but not a motion on the item, the actual item, which is 1510, correct?
All right, so I get it. I get what you're saying. You want us to actually vote on that item?
Yes.
It was voted to be removed from consideration for voting.
So the motion was changed to remove it. So that's not how that works?
I'm sorry, I did not get the motion, so there's a lot going on. So it was, okay, thank you. So it's tabled.
It's tabled.
Okay, thank you. I didn't hear the motion.
Thank you. Okay, thanks, Christian.
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
If it's okay, I do just want to clarify the board respectfully that with regard to the vote, I do just want to say publicly for public record, we will immediately begin and continue, as Chief Doherty referenced, a longer term solution, but I do just want to alert the board and the public that means while we wait for whatever community outreach the board is referencing to come, that school begins on Monday, and we should alert families that there may be an occasion where we may not have water in certain schools, because this is water for students in schools. It is a stopgap, and so I do want to flag that as part of the record, public record, and vote. Thank you.
I appreciate that. I'm sure there are other water companies that is there other water companies we can buy bottled water from?
Right, and I would just flag, given some of the operations committee discussions recently about the timing of contracts and procurement, I will just flag now again for record that we will continue and we will expedite that. But I just want to note that in the context of other discussions that operations committee and others have had about procurement. But of course, we will continue working on that.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments about this item?
So we're saying we have 0 water
So on Monday, when we start schools, the kids won't have water.
This is a major source of bottled water for our schools. So we have some water in schools, but we need this water to make sure that all schools have water. This is bottled water. We did it we haven't had the the bubblers open because of COVID concerns. So we're just opening them up again. And so we need this water to make sure that the bubblers are open because of cleanliness. We needed to be able to, we didn't have them open. We had people using bottled water in the past. So this year we need the actual bottled water, the big bottles that go, on a dispenser. And this is that water. And so without that, we will not have enough water for our schools for Monday.
So we're not saying we won't have water in 15 days. We're not saying we won't have water in 30 days. We're saying we won't have water on Monday.
That is my understanding from the chief operating officer, is that it's a question about whether we will be ready for water next week.
That doesn't make sense.
Commissioner Bondima, did you have a comment?
Oh, you heard what I just said. I'm sorry. I thought I was muted. I'm not.
I want to invite you to talk.
I just said, when you say that we won't have water Monday, we don't have a stock right this minute to be prepared for Monday? Is that what we're saying?
My understanding is that there is no short-term gap at this time. The procurement, we did this as a piggyback because we needed to obtain the water. And so that's why we did it as a piggyback, because it's a faster way to procure the water. And so that's why we did it, so we could make sure we had water available for schools when they opened.
Okay.
I'm serious. I'm serious. So in terms of these bottles here and in the system, we're at a deficit where we cannot support the kids.
I mean, I don't know how long you can go. This had,
yeah. If I could say, I don't think it is a matter of there is no water for Monday.
Okay.
With ordering and stopgapping, which is why the piggybacking occurred, there's a lag time in between when the supply ends and becomes robust enough to ensure that every school has water. Does not mean there's no water in the entire district.
Okay.
But what it does mean is that you order ahead of time to make sure, particularly in high temperatures, particularly coming off of a summer program where we served 14,000 students, originally designed to serve 7,000 students. And you have a stopgap in between. So it's not as if Monday there's no water in the district. But as part of the planning, the piggyback contract was to be able to make up the ground in between when the new contract that's when we piggyback. We piggyback with other district contracts because it's already been approved and we can expedite it. We did not select Nestle. We did not identify as a district that we wanted bottled water for Nestle. It was a short-term stopgap with an existing contract from another district to help bridge the gap between where we are with water now and where a new contract with water would be, knowing that the supply and the demand is higher. And we used more water, we used more bottled water this summer, and we don't have access to, again, faucets and, not faucets, but to the water sources that we would have due to the COVID. So it's not as if Monday morning kids are going to walk into school and there's no water, but as part of the planning, we did a piggyback contract. And I fully understand the board and public's concern with the company in question. We piggybacked this contract to be able to make sure that we had robust enough supply, because we have been guaranteeing that schools will have water, will have drinking water.
And the piggyback timeline is how long?
I don't know, Chris, what's the piggybacking timeline? Do you know, on the piggyback contract? Chief Doherty, sorry.
I will check the paperwork. I will check the paperwork now, but it usually lasts at least a year, depending on what the original contract was for. But I'll go off camera, and unless Ms. Wilson knows herself.
It's for a shorter term. We're doing this until January. We're putting out our own solicitation in tandem with this effort.
Can I ask my question? I have first Commissioner Griffin and then Commissioner Roberts.
So that helps to answer where my confusion was with this too, is how long would this contract be, and then the opportunity to review and find another organization to fill in this space that we don't want to continue giving this money to Nestle for. Because the reason I will say I voted to take this off, because I do not believe in supporting organizations and entities that are not good for humankind as far as the climate is concerned, and also thinking about our human rights issues. Now, knowing that our kids need water though, like this is a huge piece for me, and thinking about how to ensure that we're being good stewards of the money that we have, ensuring that our kids have their needs met as far as necessities with water, and at the same time planning for the future to do better with the entities that we do business with. So if this is up until, you're saying this is to stop the gap up until next January, if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Wilson?
This would be through January 31st, 2022. And it's a, it's a requirements contract, so we don't even have to spend the total amount or that entire amount of time with Nestle if we're able to complete the solicitation earlier than that.
Okay. For that reason, and that reason only, I'm going to change my vote, because I do not want us to be in a situation where we have, where we do not have the opportunity to plan ahead, to change gears with who we do business with, and we have this space and time where our kids do not have the proper water in schools.
Commissioner Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to offer for my colleagues and for the general public to know this is a procurement that came before the Operations Committee on August the 17th. We did discuss this. What I cannot believe happened tonight was that someone introduced a motion against having water in our buildings for our students, understanding the conditions of our buildings. I'm wildly disappointed that we would ask questions after a motion as such has passed. As a mother of a third grader in a building, I am wildly disappointed in this board tonight.
Thank you. Give me 1 second so that we can move forward with the agenda.
Can I reply? Briefly?
I would like to move on with the agenda as we table this item.
All right.
Hey, Vice Chair, I'd like to change my vote also. So I don't know what that does in terms of the dynamic, but I'd like to hear a new proposal.
So, Mr. Gant, can you remind us of the votes at this point?
Somebody could make a new motion. Second, we could revote.
Mr. Gant, would you remind us of the votes?
Commissioner McFadden, I'll be honest, I might have missed a couple, but from what I have, Commissioner Richardson was a yay. Commissioner McFadden, you changed your vote from a yay to a nay on the motion. Commissioner Mondema has an abstain. Commissioner Brooks was a nay on the motion. Commissioner Chinya was a nay on the motion, correct? Mr. Chinya?
Not originally, but if the votes had changed, it has gone from 5 that were yes to 3.
Okay. Commissioner Griffin changed from a yay to a nay, if I had that correctly. Commissioner James made the motion as a yay, and Commissioner Reed, you're switching to a yay, and Commissioner Roberts remains a nay, if I had that correct.
So did that motion pass?
No, there are.
The motion to pull it it's now failed, right?
And Commissioner Richardson, you were a
It's failed.
Nay on the motion, correct?
I was a yes, pull it. But I think Commissioner Roberts wants to make a new motion.
I'm also the previous motion. Oh, okay.
This is Bundima. I'm a little bit confused because I'm thinking about changing my vote, but I'm confused as to where we are right now. Before I vote, I want to make sure I'm clear about what I'm voting for.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept Nestle under the provision that we try to create the shortest timeline as possible to get a new procurement for water. But I think we should accept Nestle to get it done.
I second that motion.
Commissioner Reed, I just want to make sure we heard the motion correctly. Can you restate, please?
So could just make a motion to reconsider?
Yes.
Yes. The motion is to reconsider 15.10 as it has been presented to us.
Commissioner Griffin, do you second that motion?
Yes, I second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Is there time for discussion, Madam Chair?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Discussion, go ahead.
So I would just like to say that I, of course, want children to have water. This is a situation where it feels like we were once again asked to rubber stamp an item where we didn't have time in this board to do it. And I know that it went through committee, and I respect the committee's decision. But if there was a longer runway, this would not be such a challenge. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner James. So all in favor, we're going to do this vote again. Commissioner Bondima?
Commissioner Richardson, I'm sorry, Commissioner Griffin has a hand up. I don't know if that's from.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's hard to flip from being here and then looking at this. I'm sorry.
It is. I apologize. My virtual hand is down.
Commissioner Bondima, your virtual hand is up. Do you have a question?
Oh, no, I'm just, after hearing, maybe I should say what I need to say. After hearing the issue that we might not have enough water to last till we need to get another contractor or whatever, it changed my whole way of thinking until I heard the reasons why we're dealing with this issue. And I am totally upset about what I heard, but because I want to make sure my children have water, I'm gonna change my vote. And I'll lower my hand. That's the reason why I'm gonna change my vote. But I want it on record. Please, thank you.
It's noted for the record. I guess what I'm grappling with is, like everybody else, I want young people to have water. I just wish that it didn't come at the 11th hour, that if we didn't vote tonight, the kids wouldn't have water. I think if we could be a little bit more proactive with this particular type of procurement, that would make me feel better, so that when things come to the board, if we don't vote for them, there is still time to shift and make some different decisions. But that's what I'll say. We have a motion on the table. All the comments and questions have been stated. So I'm gonna go down the list.
I'm sorry, Chair Richardson. I have one last question. And this is almost like a question and a comment at the same time. I'm just thinking about, like, with our 21st century schools, with the renovation of our newer schools and understanding the water systems in them, is that a way to create more of a long-term solution to us needing bottled water, and making sure that our students still have their needs met as far as water is concerned, students and our teachers. So it's thinking about, like, in the 21st century schools, is some of this being handled for the future so that we don't have to continue to buy bottled water to provide water for our students? It's just a general question.
Yeah. So in 21st century schools, the water is filtered upon entry and the pipes have all been replaced, so they don't need bottled water there. So you are correct. The challenge with our other schools is that the cost of either doing a filtration system or replacing the pipes is much more costly than actually bottled water. So we've looked at it and we've ascertained that long-term, it is much more cost-effective to do bottled water than it would be to actually replace the water systems. It would take a lot of time to, so all of our buildings need upgrades in many ways, and as we do that, we tend to replace update it so they can drink from the water fountains. But if you're just taking a building and just trying to put a filtration system in, the cost of the filters, the replacement cost of the filters, it takes it's much more costly over years to do that as opposed to bottled water.
Okay, thank you for explaining that, and I'll save my other questions for a later time because I know we need to move to vote. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Chenya has her hand raised.
And this is Commissioner Brooks. I would like to say something as well after Chair Chenya
Okay.
or Commissioner Chenya.
Commissioner Chenya and then Commissioner Brooks. Thanks.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to prolong it. I am going to reluctantly change my vote, but I would encourage that we procurement please look to try to do this before or by the end of 2021 and not move us into 2022 with this particular item.
Commissioner Brooks.
Yeah, and I just wanted to second that. I just feel, again, like the runway was too short for this. I think it's important for our young people to have water. And I just also want to raise that, like, since this is such a core and critical function, sort of why wasn't this sort of addressed earlier as a need? And then, so if we're opening schools and have a limited supply of water, for me, this feels like issues with management and sort of the administration of our a successful opening for schools. And so I just kind of want to raise that as a core issue and don't feel like it's appropriate for us to be bound in this way as board members because of the ways in which management is playing out.
Thank you, Commissioner Brooks. Commissioner Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Brooks, what I'd like to offer you is, again, this procurement came before the Operations Committee last week on the 17th. That was ample time for this board to review every procurement that will be before us tonight. And in an attempt, what we could have done tonight is brought forth a motion for an emergency procurement until a new vendor could have been identified. But that is not what this board did tonight. They acted off of a solo motion that would have negatively impacted the students of Baltimore City, something that we all swore that we would not do. And that is why I am very upset with this board tonight.
Yeah, and so Commissioner Roberts, I feel the same. I mean, I feel like I was surprised that it was an emergency procurement because it's the essential item as water would not be under emergency procurement. But point noted for sure.
Am I missing any hands?
No hands.
All right. So are we ready to vote? Commissioner Bondima?
We're voting to accept.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Yes. Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Chenya?
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
No.
Commissioner McFadden?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts?
Yes.
And I'm also in favor. That's
8 in favor, 1 no.
8 in favor, 1 no. Thank you. The next item, 15.11, K-Neal International Trucks. Was that you, Commissioner Roberts? You pulled that? We can't hear you on the thing.
It's not.
Oh. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted for staff to assist me in highlighting the need for this procurement, as we understand that there is a national shortage for bus drivers. So in procuring the buses, how that assists our students in moving forward.
Hello, Jacinta Hughes, Director of Transportation for Baltimore City. So currently we do not have 64 and 72 passenger buses to assist with athletics and cultural trips. Right now we have grant funding available to purchase 10 additional buses that will help us to support a wider range of our students. And so that's why we selected to buy type 2 buses to support all our students, as well as help with contractor compliance.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes. Was there something you wanted to add to that, Mr. Marshall? Okay.
She stated it well.
Thank you so much. Madam Chair, I move that we move the procurement. And it's gonna have the number in front of me. 15.11.
Second.
Is there a second? Second by McFadden. All in favor? Commissioner Bondima?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Chinya?
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden? Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts?
Yes.
And I'm in favor. Any opposed? Any abstained?
9.
Okay. That motion passes. And then the last one we pulled was 16.01, tuition reimbursement.
Chair Richardson, I pulled it. I just wanted to know, and I see you present, Chief Grant Skinner, what the reimbursement percentages are for all of the bargaining units that were referenced in the letter outside of the teachers union. And maybe I missed it, but I don't think I did in reading the letter. I didn't see any other bargaining units except for them.
Sure, thanks, Commissioner. You are correct. So we gave the BTU information about tuition reimbursement as an example in the board letter. I will share now what that looks like across bargaining units, and would say for folks who want to see it in a place, it's in the chat earlier. So I posted a photo that you can click on and enlarge to see what I'm sharing. So for BTU teacher chapter affiliated employees and BTU PSRP chapter affiliated employees, it is 75% of 12 credits per fiscal year for employees who have no more than a bachelor's degree. For employees who have a master's degree or above, it's 50% of 12 credits per year. For L44, our skilled trade union, their negotiated rate is up to $250 per credit for up to 9 credits per fiscal year. For Pizzazza, our administrators union, there's a total amount available. So there's a pool of funds available of $125,000 per year for everyone in the unit. Individuals can be reimbursed for up to $3,000 per year total. For CUB and FOP, their rate is 50% for up to 12 credits per semester. And our unaffiliated staff have 50% of 12 credits per fiscal year.
So this, I'm sure this is a part of contractual negotiation, is it? Yeah, I'm curious to know if the percentages or the ratios based on all of the things that are involved in this, if the allotment of percentages, if that is equitable. For example, when I see Pizzazza, a total of $125,000 per year for all members of Pizzazza, is that in line with some of our other bargaining units? If my question is making sense.
Sure, it is. In that example, what I will say is in our most recent negotiation with Pizzazza, that cap was increased as an effort with Pizzazza to meet the full need. That cap used to be $100,000 per year, And then there was a year when the demand for tuition reimbursement exceeded the cap that was put in place. So we negotiated an increase to that cap for Pizzazza. So what you said is true. These are, like all benefits, have to be negotiated with each individual bargaining unit. And there are places in our implementation of benefits where even if we have an interest in having a standardization, it is not something the district can unilaterally do. So we have to negotiate different benefits with each individual bargaining unit, and in those negotiations, there are always priorities of that each bargaining unit brings to the table.
Thank you, Chief. Chair Richardson, I'm sorry.
Commissioner McFadden, since I answered that question and have the floor, I just want to take one moment to say, to give some acknowledgement to Charlamar Douglas. She was one of the 14 members of the core team of the Baltimore, the Black Teacher Recruitment and Retention Working Group in 2018-2019, and then she coordinated a group of teachers in a subsequent work in the 2019-2020 school year called Retaining Black Excellence. And she has been working full-time to deepen our partnerships with colleges and universities in the region. So I would just add for folks' information that we're seeking to put in place a different arrangement for the way we pay tuition reimbursement without changing what's available. And we have a whole group of colleges and universities in the region who are ready to go and make this available immediately because of the work that Charlamar has done. So I wanted to publicly provide that recognition.
I appreciate that. Charlamar is a rock star. I'm very familiar with her work and her impact, not just with city schools, but throughout the entire community. So yes, Charlamar, certainly kudos to you. You appreciate it. And Chief Grant Skinner, I completely understand the purpose for this particular letter. I just felt it to be the appropriate time to actually ask about that. But Chair Richardson, I move this favorably.
Okay, I just wanted to also give a shout out to you, Chief Grant Skinner. You just said the way we pay before the public. I really want to be clear. The school system is paying directly to these universities. Did I read that right? Directly to the universities, whereas before, employees would have to come out of pocket on their own. And that alone just closes gaps, right? So now that I know that the system will pay for me to go, I can now afford to make the decision, and my decision can be, yes, I'll go back and get more education. And I just want to applaud you and your team for that foresight and for doing that, okay?
To that, Chair Richardson, I'm curious, Chief Grant Skinner, how progressive this is, and I see that Charlamar has her hand up. She has her hand up. But I wonder how progressive this is in comparison to other jurisdictions, potentially even that surround us. Is this unheard of, or are there just a few systems doing something like this? Or are we one of the leading school systems doing something like this?
Some other Maryland districts have a direct billing arrangement in place with some college and university partners. In our case, what we've presented to you for your consideration today is to give approval for us to enter into a direct billing relationship with every one of the colleges and universities that is a professional development school partner of the district. That's 9 colleges and universities in Baltimore City, or 4-year colleges and universities in Baltimore City and Baltimore County, and also the community colleges of the city and Baltimore County. So I think the breadth of this, and again, supported with the work on the other side that I talked about for Charlamar, I think it's unique.
Appreciate that, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for including unaffiliated employees. I think they need some love, so thank you.
Charlamagne.
Charlamagne, you're up next.
I'm here. Can you all hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I just want to say thank you all. Thank you all for hearing this and considering this. This is an emotional win for us. We have been working at this for a few years, partnering with our colleges and local colleges and universities for direct billing. This means so much for our Black and Brown educators who are primarily our conditional educators. So they come to us through the conditional teacher pipeline, affording to be able to pay for their coursework upfront, and waiting for a reimbursement is a barrier that keeps many from enrolling in courses. And also just not having those direct relationships did not allow us to give our teachers the guidance that they needed. And so many more of them are now enrolling. Our bet is that having this direct billing will get our educators highly qualified. We are aligning to the blueprint with this because we know that the blueprint will require our educators to be enrolled in a Maryland approved program. So we are ahead there. Our teachers will be prepared to take the EdTPA, which is another part of the blueprint. And we will be retaining educators, and we will be helping to make sure that our educators are educated in Maryland, and our partners know that they understand the place where our teachers are working. So I just want to say thank you. Our partners are going to be really happy to hear this. And another plug, yesterday I met with State Senator Mary Washington and had reason to bring this up. And she was over the moon about this happening for our teachers and removing this barrier for them. So thank you all so much. And thank you, Dr. Santelises and Jeremy and everybody else who's been on the ride with this piece.
Okay, thank you so much. With that, is there a motion to approve 16.01?
Yes, there is. I move it favorably, Chair Richardson.
Thank you, Commissioner McFadden.
Second read.
Is there a second?
Second read.
What a night. Thank you, Commissioner Reed. All in favor? Commissioner Bondima?
Yes.
Did she say yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Chenya?
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
I need to abstain for conflict of interest, but I am so excited to welcome the cohort that are joining us at Morgan State University this fall.
Go Bears. I'm sorry. Commissioner McFadden?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts?
Yes.
And I am in favor. That's all of us, right?
That's 8 in favor, 1 abstention.
Oh, okay. 8 in favor, 1 abstention. Thank you. So can we vote for the rest of our consent items?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second read.
All in favor, Commissioner Bondima?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Chenya?
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts?
Yes. Yes.
And I'm in favor.
All in favor.
All in favor. I just want to say this before we move on. I'm actually pretty proud of our board tonight because we engaged in dialogue. We allowed people's opinions to influence how we looked at things. So, and then with appropriate information, I think we made the right call in making sure that our young people have water, but not just that, making sure that in the future, we're going to do business with the right kind of businesses. So I thank you all for the dialogue, and I thank you for the back and forth, and I thank you for the push and the pull. because I think that is what's going to make us a better, stronger system. So thank you to all the members of the board. The next item on our agenda, Christian, we're at item 9.01.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. We will now hear an information item on school readiness, staffing, and summer professional learning. Thank you.
Good evening again. This is Jeremy Grant Skinner, Chief Human Capital Officer. As we prepare to welcome students for the 2021-2022 school year, we want to provide some information about our preparation for the year. This presentation follows the school readiness plan presentation by Chief Lynette Washington in the operations office in last week's operations committee meeting. That covered work on construction projects, facilities maintenance, and student transportation. Tonight, we'll share more about teacher staffing and summer professional learning. This first slide shows teacher retention rates from one year to the next over the last 2 decades or so. For this, we are looking at classroom teachers on September 1st of 1 year, and seeing how many of them are still working with the district as classroom teachers on September 1st of the next year. So what this excludes when we look at teachers who stay are people who leave the district, but also people who move into other roles, like people who earn promotions to be an assistant principal. A few people this year who moved from teacher roles into principal residency roles or literacy coach roles and other things like that. Over a 14-year period, up to and including 2017, there were only 3 years where the district had a teacher retention rate of 85% or more. Then in 2018 and 2019, we had the first back-to-back years of teacher retention at least 85%. Now, this year is the second year in a row with record high teacher retention at 89%. We also set a goal as a district to more specifically increase the teacher retention among our best educators, our teachers who are rated highly effective. And we've not only consistently maintained, but in the last 3 years increased the teacher retention rate at a higher level for those educators than for the overall teacher retention rate that you see on this slide. Next, just as staffing readiness is supported by retaining more of our teachers, another key metric is the number of teachers we hire. We have overcome challenges in the pandemic and increased our number of new teacher hires. These are people who are brand new to the district in any role and stepping into a teacher role this year. The projected final number of new teacher hires this year is 650. This is 100 more than the average over the last decade or a little more. And the prior data about teacher retention and this data might seem like they don't fully align. And the reason is that we've needed a lot of teachers this year because we added a lot of teacher positions. So in the budget for this fiscal year, teacher positions across the district increased by about 100. And then in addition, we have about 75 new teacher positions for the small virtual learning program that Dr. Santelices talked about earlier this evening. So together, the demand for new teachers went up significantly, and it really wasn't due to more attrition, given that our retention is the best it has been, but because we added a significant number of new positions. So with those two things together, when we are projecting our potential teacher vacancies as of the first day of school, as of the middle of last week, it was projected to be 78. Our goal is is always to get to a point where we have no vacancies in teacher positions on day one. What you can see here is what we're projecting is to, again, like last year, have a fill rate on that first day of 99%, or 99% of our teacher positions have a teacher on day one. And this is continuing a trend over the last 3 years where we've had fewer than 100 first day teacher vacancies, which did not look certain as we were going through the challenges and hearing many national trends about even bigger than normal teacher shortages. So to be at a place where 2 years ago, we had the first time ever that the district opened with fewer than 100 teacher vacancies, to be at a place now where we're saying we did that for the 3rd year in a row. It speaks to progress, not complete progress, but progress toward what we know our students need on day one. So with those few preliminary highlights about the staffing side of staff of school readiness, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague to talk about summer professional learning.
Thanks so much, Chief Grant Skinner. Good evening, everybody. I'm Joan Dabrowski, Chief Academic Officer. Excited to share some of the work we did this summer around professional learning. I do want to go back to Dr. Santelises' opening remarks about the just incredible work of summer learning and the number of our educators who were engaged in that summer work as part of a professional commitment and as part of the professional learning that went on with many of those programs. So we were just so thrilled by the response, knowing that our educators had just been through a very challenging school year, that so many stepped up to serve our students this summer. So again, a huge shout out to that and recognizing that professional commitment and work that occurred. This summer, we were thrilled to be able to offer some clear areas of focus that aligned with our R3 work, our Reconnect, Restore, Reimagine work. Again, the leadership work really focused on how we were going to think about welcoming students, staff, and families back to our schools. We talked a lot about accelerated learning, our personalized learning approach, most specifically with our student learning plans. We highlighted wellness, culture, climate, and safety. We certainly continue to think about our equity work led by Dr. Durant and her team. And then again, we continue to have work around operations and facilities as we prepare for that readiness for this school year. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see that we were able to operationalize this professional learning through a variety of methods. So throughout the month of July, we had ongoing school readiness stats, which included both time for some deeper work around topics such as accelerated learning and wholeness, while also thinking about those operation and school readiness pieces. We hosted a virtual leadership institute on August 3rd and 4th for our school leaders and their school leadership teams. Again, we also had another virtual operations institute on August 11th and 12th, and we were thrilled to have an in-person CEO institute August 18th and 19th with a virtual session on the 20th. And again, really the energy around our Reconnect, Restore, Reimagine work was the center of that, with those key strategies or areas of focus that I just mentioned. So similarly, if we go to the next slide, for our teachers and staff, we are really anchoring our work with them right now about preparing for those first 30 days of students coming back. And again, you'll see these same themes coming up, these same key strategies from our R3 work: accelerated learning, personalized learning, and student learning plans. Our commitment again around wellness, culture, climate, and safety, equity, and then there was intentional work from our Office of Special Education to support our special educators and our related service providers, again, as we're welcoming students back. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see how we, again, had a variety of structures for this work to unfold this summer. We were thrilled that we were able to have our new Teacher Institute August 10th through the 13th. We had a Special Education Institute also for new teachers, the 16th and 17th. And then today was our first day of Systemic Professional Day for our teachers and school-based staff. And we'll have another full day of that on Thursday. So again, the topics that I just outlined, and then again, sort of those key ways that we've been working throughout the summer. So if we go to the next slide, I just want to go into a little bit more details about our new Teacher Summer Institute. So again, these are designed to really support all of our newly hired classroom teachers. And they really dig into some of the very the basic pieces of our work. They learn about our framework. They get a deeper exposure to our curricular areas. They learn about our approach for social emotional learning. Again, there's a number of experiences throughout their week. And again, we were able to also infuse those R3 strategies as we were welcoming those new teachers to us this summer. If we go to the next slide. Similarly, we do a special education new teacher institute. And again, we know that our special education and general educators who have to really think about the particular nuances and expectations when it comes to special education, there's intentional work around our IEP development and how we implement our IEPs and how we monitor them. The important pieces around some of our training and third-party billing. So again, all those details really come through in our Special Education Institute. And on the next slide, where we want to really highlight and call out the exciting work that our 21st Century Schools experience as part of their launch and opening and ongoing support, we are able to offer a number of different opportunities throughout the summer that really highlight the ways in which these buildings have been designed for 21st century teaching and learning. So here you'll see we've been able to offer things around how to do STEM, project-based learning, 3D printers. So again, a really rich and robust set of technology offerings. And that work that happens each summer then becomes this ongoing body of work that we're able to continue through our AU courses. And then in opportunities where we can to actually expand that learning beyond our 21st Century Schools to teachers who are in other buildings. So again, a lot of really thoughtful training and support for our 21st century colleagues. And then the other piece I wanted to highlight is the work of our CSI, TSI, and 100% project schools. In addition to those pieces around reconnect, restore, and reimagine, our CSI and our TSI schools have done intentional work. And as you can see on this slide, it has to do with how they're approaching their budgets, their school performance plans, and getting at that important strategy and goal development work. So again, in addition to those pieces around accelerated learning and climate and school culture, our TSI and CSI schools have done this added layer. And again, to be able to support that work for those schools, recognizing the unique needs that they have. Again, if there's additional information, I know that as Chief Grant Skinner mentioned, the school readiness for our operations committee had already been shared, and happy to answer any questions. And I definitely have some colleagues here if there's a particular area of PD that you're most interested in who can provide additional details.
Are there any questions?
I do have a question.
Oh, give me 1 second, because I want to also invite Ezra to this discussion. Do you have any questions or comments? Okay. Commissioner McFadden.
Thank you, Chair Richardson. What was some of the feedback from the summer professional learning sessions? If we have that, and how do we know that learning, that development will support our students and improve outcomes for our young people? You're muted, Dr. Dabrowski.
Thank you, Commissioner McFadden. So all of our sessions end with opportunities for people to give us feedback. And so we do collect surveys at the end of all of our sessions. We were able to hear specifically, I'll use the example from our August 3rd and 4th Leadership Institute. We were able to take that data where principals were really eager for more concrete information about student learning plans. And so where we had done some general guidelines and high-level overview, they wanted the more concrete detailed about what the plans will look like, how teachers will be supported. And so we actually used that feedback to refine what we did, again, and what we were able to offer them at the CEO Institute, and then what we're offering our teachers today and on Thursday. And again, we were able to bring teacher voices into that work, which was really exciting. We had a group of teachers working alongside a couple of our principals and some district leaders together to dig into that. And so having those perspectives and voices really helped us respond to, again, that school level need and interest. So I think that's just one example. I would say the CEO Institute just ended last Friday, so we haven't been able to dig into that data, but we certainly will as we plan forward. And again, I think for us, as we go into today and then on Thursday, getting the teacher feedback to continually to check ourselves on what's working well and what additional supports do they need. So it's part of our process, and we certainly take it to adjust what we do next.
I appreciate that, because as we're thinking about, our 3R plan, our recovery plan, our teachers are really going to be driving that work. I really appreciate you lifting that up, and I appreciate you, you all and the team really focusing on teachers leading this process of introducing these learning plans and the process of developing them, implementing them, monitoring them. I've heard nothing but positive things today from teachers that have been participating. So I just wanted to make sure that we raised that and that we shouted our teachers out, because they're back, right?
Absolutely.
So I wanted to make sure that we did that. Thank you. That's it for me, Chair Richardson.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, comments? Okay, I gotta look around the room and on the computer. All right. Seeing none, are there any board committee reports? Commissioner Roberts, operations, or Commissioner Brooks for policy? No? Okay. Is Commissioner Brooks still with us?
Yes.
Okay. Any updates, sir?
Nothing in particular. I think if folks are aware that we have started engaging the compliance report, which are giving at sort of annual basis based on a particular time frame, and during our public meetings for the committee, we've been able to start grappling sort of what that means for us as a district. And so this is a new dimension, and that we really think would help engage sort of opportunities for change and implementation. And so we just invite folks to continue to show up and support and help us engage us, not only as we look at the policy, but then also the compliance reports and how they impact our district.
All right, thank you so much. We have the notice of our upcoming meetings. Commissioner Roberts, can you let our public know when our meetings are coming up?
Sure, Madam Chair. So we have a special executive session meeting tomorrow, which will be a virtual meeting at 2:15 p.m. We have our Teaching and Learning Committee meeting on Thursday, September 9th at 3:30 p.m., and that will also be virtual. Our next executive session meeting will be Tuesday, September 14th at 3 p.m., and that will be in person for all board members and designated staff, as well as our public meeting that will follow same day, Tuesday, September 14th at 5 p.m. The next Operations Committee meeting will be Tuesday, September 21st at 10:30 a.m., and that will be virtual. And our next Policy Committee meeting will be Tuesday, September 21st at 3:30 p.m., and that will be virtual as well.
Thank you very, very much. The next is adjournment. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Chair Richardson, before we do that.
Before we do that, go ahead.
I just want to say happy birthday to Commissioner Roberts. She just experienced a birthday last week. Although we celebrated her in exec session, I think the public should know that Commissioner Roberts just had a birthday. So happy birthday to you. And then, of course, our teachers are back this week. Many of them, although some of them have been back, during the summer. We've been engaging in summer learning, and some folks have never stopped. The work of a teacher never ends. But I just want to let all of the teachers in city schools know that we believe in you. We're here for you. We support you. We're happy for you. We're proud of you. And all of the amazing things that you're going to do for our young people. Our children need us more now than ever. And it's very important that we show up with our best and we do our best work for children because they deserve it. So welcome back. Happy New Year, teachers. And we are ready to rock and roll. But I do move that we adjourn.
Nicely said. Oh, yes, ma'am. Commissioner Chenya?
I don't think we can leave this evening without reminding all of our students that Monday, August the 30th is the first day of school. And so we hope that you're getting filled with school spirit, and we're excited to be able to greet you and have a fantastic school year.
Thank you both, Commissioner McFadden and Commissioner Chenya. You can tell the educators in the bunch, right? Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Thank you, Commissioner Bondema. Is there a second?
Second, McFadden.
Thank you, Commissioner McFadden. We're adjourned. Have a good night, everyone.